Welcome back to the FloTrack podcast. I'm Kevin Sully, joined by Gordon Mack. Good morning, Gordon. How are you doing?
Morning, good to be back. Missed you guys. You guys canceled me unofficially from the pod for 2 days without me even knowing. But it's good to be back in Austin, Texas. It was in Galveston in my home of the McDonald's parking lot for the pod. But now I'm back into my bedroom with the same backdrop with the perfect is the enemy of good.
Yeah.
Definitely did not have
Have you?
perfect internet back
No,
last
no,
week.
you
So
you definitely didn't. So we had to engage in some Gordon Mack eraser. Have you seen the thing on Twitter about rate my Skype room and people who are on TV send pictures of their setup and then they get rated on a scale of 1 to 10? Have you seen that?
no, I have not. However, I have
Okay,
seen
yours.
people's Skypes that are very good.
Yeah, and then there's ones that are very bad, and then it's kind of funny
Yeah.
because the person will be like, get yourself out of that dungeon, 1 out of 10 or something. Yours actually, I think, could be pretty good. They're big on like wanting plants and stuff in the background, but because you have those 3 frames behind you, the only thing that I think, well, actually four now that I'm seeing it, you got one like right behind your shoulder.
Oh yeah,
The
good.
other thing is just this, yeah, the switch on the light switch. If you position yourself away from the light switch, you got good frames behind you,
So,
and it's very centered, nice.
so you see four, right? You see one, two, three, four.
Yeah,
But what if if you go like
yeah,
that, then there's five. Then there's five.
yeah. Exactly. And then you get pre in there and then you lose it. Now, the balance is a little bit off now. Now, this is not making sense to anybody who's listening to this podcast, but right there, that current shot, like I like the balance of all the frames that you have behind you. Again, the lighting, they judge the lighting pretty seriously and they're big on having plants and books and things like that. But all things considered, it's way better than mine. Mine is just the disaster zone of my dresser behind me. So I want to commend you on that because it's not. I'm just saying, yes, your internet was bad last week, and it probably you're going to probably go to Galveston again next week, and we're going to have the same issue. So I want to make sure I'm not just criticizing you. I'm also giving you compliments where you do a good job.
Well, I appreciate it. I did listen to your podcast on Friday on the car ride back from Galveston. You guys talked
Mm-hmm.
about the impossible games. I was very happy that Lincoln, my boy Lincoln, went on the mini rant about the types of people in this world who want to correct someone for saying world record when technically it's a world best. Those are the
Yes,
people
yes,
who are like the well actually people, like
yeah.
they're the for those who watch what's his name from The Office. Uh what's the Oscar? That's the
Like,
Oscar of The Office, the one who's
mm-hmm.
like actually the GDP of that place was actually down over 10 years. It's like, all right, we don't care. A world record. Do you get if someone tweets out, I got a PR, does this same person like tweet at them, be like, did you mean PB? Because there's no
Yeah, yeah,
ratification of your personal records. Like,
yeah,
shut up. It's like best
yeah.
record, who cares? I don't know. It's like
It's the fastest
complaining
time in
about
history.
yeah, it's the fastest time
Yeah.
in history.
The only time that I get weird about stuff like that is when people say it's a new world record. That bothers me a little bit as opposed to setting an old world record, which doesn't make any sense at all. And I guess you could trickle that down to a new PB or a new PR. That's the only time I wade into that level of pedantry. But you're talking about an even bigger issue where it's like, yeah, world records only count if they have that World Athletics stamp of approval, but someone can run the distance faster than any other human. It's just like we saw with the USC 4x4, right? The four people
Like,
came together and ran it faster than anybody else. If it's like, nope, doesn't count.
well, like when the beer mile was a big hit a few years ago, and the guy ran sub 5 minutes for the first time ever. The internet was being like, "It's a new world best." No, they were calling it a world record because it was the fastest ever. Like this whole like you
Yeah.
have to follow these weird ass world athletics rules, formerly IAAF rules. It's just like stupid,
Mhm.
and it's just
Yeah.
it's a way to act like you're smart, in my opinion. It's just like, hey, look at technically, it's not a record, it's a best
Mhm.
because it's not part of the top 36 events that we call records. Who cares? Shut up.
Yeah. Well, that's
It's
the
a
thing.
record. Okay.
It Yeah, it only counts as a record within their little world of records. But then you have the Guinness Book of World Records, where you can get a record for literally anything. Probably some might say too many things. Fastest mile on a unicycle with while juggling with one hand, and then you go on the other extreme, and it's way too restrictive on the other side. You're you did some data diving though this weekend, I saw,
I did.
because there was a very fast 5,000-meter time trial turned in by Kira D'Amato, 35 years old, and she ran 15:04. She's a marathoner now. Finished 15th at the Olympic marathon trial. It's just a lot of people may not know who she is, but can you put into context how fast that is for someone her age? Let alone the
Yeah.
fact that she PR'd by over a minute.
Yeah, 15:04, and I was thinking that's actually kind of fast. That might be some type of unique category fast with her age. So I busted out the deep lists of all the people who've ever run fast times, and she became the seventh woman who, over the age of 35 and up, who ran a sub 15:05 5K. So
Okay.
there's only 6 other women who've ever done it in history in the world. 3 of those 6 other women are Americans. So the fastest one is Edith Masai, who ran 14:33 at the age of 39. She ran a bunch of sub 15:05s in her late 30s. So
Mm-hmm.
she's the unicorn of the group, the Kenyan athlete. And then you had 3 Americans. Regina Jacobs ran 14:45 at age 36. Shalane Flanagan ran 14:58 at age 35. Marla Runyon ran 14:59, age 35. Then a Russian athlete, Zilyavia, ran 14:59 at age 35. Then Joanne Pavey, Great Britain, age 36, 15:02. And then now Kira D'Amato, 15:04, USA, age 35. She's 35 in 7 months. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it is a unique category to be in. I mean,
Yeah.
age 35 is up there when it comes to running 5K and under. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
typically age 35 and up isn't out of ordinary for marathoning, for 10K in a weird way, but 5K where you need some speed, it's not often that. I mean, she was the only 7th woman ever in the world to run that fast at that
Mm-hmm.
age.
I got to tell you though, Gordon, I don't know if it counts for official purposes because it was done in a. I
Well,
just had to.
even if it was an official timer, they still wouldn't count it
Mm-hmm.
because they would be like there was no rail, and then they also wouldn't count it because she had a male pacer. It would just be they
Yeah.
probably wouldn't count it because her singlet was untucked. It'll just be all stupid reasons. I don't know. But
So many asterisks here. So the
it makes
women's
me want to see her
5,000
run
in
an
the U.S.
actual race. You know?
Well, right, exactly. That's what I was gonna say. The women's 5,000 right now in the U.S. is incredibly fast. So a 15:04 doesn't get you what it used to, probably. But yeah, I want to see her in a real national class race right now.
Yeah, and I was talking to JoJo about it, and has there? I mean, I'm sure it's happened, but how many women run the Olympic marathon trials and the Olympic 5K trials in the same season? I guess not year
Mm-hmm.
because the trials are going to be next year, but how many people have done that? I don't think
Yeah.
it's that often, right?
Well,
Because normally
usually, I
you
mean, some of
come
them.
from the marathon to do the 10K.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and I wonder if we'll see Huddle and Sisson run the 10 and the 5 at the trials. I think if they make it in the 10, and if they keep the same schedule for the women, the 10 is first. It's the men, I think, where it's reversed. But we could see a large group theoretically this year doing it
Yeah,
for a variety of reasons. How many times do you see someone PR by that much coming down in distance? I know she went to American, and then she's like works. Is it full time? She works as a realtor. I mean, I know
I
she
think
is a
so.
realtor.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, I mean, those stories you typically associate with marathon trials, and oh, that's a fun story. That person, can be top 20 or top 30 in the United States, but to do it on, the 10K, like if she could make a U.S. final, that's really rare, right? To be that far along in your career, and having this sort of renaissance.
yeah. And like also like she's unsponsored, right? or half
Right.
sponsored. I don't know. She probably might have like free gear from a local running store or whatever. But there's like professional 5K women out there who haven't run that fast, who are like
Yeah.
sponsored, right? It's weird.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, now sure they haven't run that fast, but they also have a lot more speed. So like a lot of times you don't need it. You can be a 15:09 or 15:10 woman, but if you have 4:04 1500 speed, you're probably
Yeah.
gonna be faster than a 15:04 all out time trialer. But it's kind of interesting. I don't know. I was very impressed. You don't see that. Also, I never heard the name before. That's also kind of
Mhm.
cool because when you think of the 5K, you think who
Yeah,
everyone that
exactly.
is in that top group because you see them through college, through high school, through post collegiate, and then all of a sudden, this woman who graduated high school in 2002 just comes in and is like, "Oh yeah, I can run 15:04." Like
Mhm. Mhm.
she would have. Where does that rank right now in the U.S. if you include indoors?
Well, you obviously have. Wait, so from this year, just from
Yeah,
2020, Frazier is up there. I mean, Shelby never ran one indoors. Schweizer didn't run one indoors.
it doesn't count
Purrier
if
didn't
you
run
don't.
one indoors.
Right? I'm bringing it up.
Correct. Well, at
So
the
she
end of
would have
last year,
only four women
go ahead.
in the U.S. have run faster. So she would have been ranked fifth.
Who are the four?
Frazier 14:48, Infeld 14:51, Simpson 14:58, Frericks 15:02.
Hmm. Yeah. Obviously, a weird season to judge that on, but I consider myself an authority on this age group for personal reasons. And let me just tell you, yeah, I am not doing anything more successfully now than I was in my 20s. So for her to do that is mighty impressive. Again, very familiar with this age group. So hats off to her. I want to see it. Yeah, Kira Karlstrom uh, is her maiden name, and she competed at American University.
And she was good too, right? In college?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
Then I saw somewhere she was top 10 at cross.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
so
still, like that's no guarantee. Even if she did this right out of college, there's no guarantee that she'd run a 5,000 that fast. And then now you're talking about something that happened 15 years ago. It's, I mean, that's a wow. That's a wow. I'm
I mean,
looking at
what do you think
her. Go ahead.
if you're her, right? And you're 35 going on 36, um you know that you're in like yeah, she's running the marathon, but like anyone knows that like to make that marathon team, you have to be extremely good, right? So even I doubt like she's thinking like, hey, 2024 marathon, maybe I have a shot because I mean she'll be 39 and going up against even better competition, right? But if
Hmm.
you're her, what's like your next thing? Like you get top 20 at the US trials, you probably PR'd in the marathon, now you run a 15:04.
Yeah.
Is it like, hey,
You're
let's ride
probably,
this and get a trip to Eugene and go compete? Like
yeah.
what do
Yeah.
you
Well,
think's her next goal?
maybe your trials for sure. 10,000, I would guess. You're probably thinking, man, I ran the marathon all those years and I could have done a way shorter race and been just as good. I'm looking at her. What's her 10,000 PR? Because I'm looking at her college exploits. Most decorated runner in American University history, 4-time All American, 11-time Patriot League individual champion. She was All American in cross in 03, 04, 05, and 06 in outdoor track. So three-time three-time All American in cross, one time in track. She had the pedigree there, had the
She's
indicate. I
run
just don't
a
know what she's done
she's
for
run 33
10,000.
she's run 33:43 last year at Penn Relays in the 10K.
33, 43. I
33:40.
think she can beat that. I think
Yeah.
she can beat that. Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's what I would say. I mean, she's got to do this obviously when times are allowed to be factored in again. She'll have to do this again, but if you can do a time trial 15:04, I think in a real race, not unrealistic to expect that you could replicate that again.
Do you think she can get a sponsorship out of this random time trial, or do you think she has to
Yeah,
do it again?
15. Yeah. No, I think she'll have to do it again. Well, so we saw today Music City Distance Carnival is coming back in August. You had an update on Sunset Tour. If those meets go off, it's not like she's gonna have to wait. Now maybe they're not gonna have 5,000 meter races in those meets, but she can at least get in something where there's an official timekeeper pretty soon.
Yeah, the Sunset Tour announced or is going to announce most likely a August 22nd or August 29th date, and then I think there's going to be two events, two meets in late August, and then if you see in the lower ticker, Music City Distance Carnival announced what's the specific date they're going to do it on? August
15th.
15th. That's it. So we're going to have some late August, you know, track meets. And I think we're also going to have, international track meets as well. It's basically we're just shifting the entire calendar, 4 months from May to August. So,
Yeah.
or 3 months. So it's going to be weird. We're going to have all these domestic meets starting up. And then we have, you have the Diamond League coming, you have the Continental Tour. It's going to be a lot of track all jam packed in August and September. So it's gonna
Mm-hmm.
be weird, but it's exciting. I don't know. I'm getting even more confident that we're gonna get track. You know,
Mm.
are you? What's your level of confidence on whether or not we see people running in circles with legal times in multiple events?
I still think it's going to happen. I'm less confident now than I was last week. Remember last week you and I were talking about how good it would be to get out of this. I'm less confident than I was last week, but still,
Wait, why
I
are you
think
less
we will
confident?
see it. Oh, just the numbers going up, up, and up and up in
The numbers
specific
aren't.
states.
They're not though. I saw an article. It's skewed. People,
No, I
the,
mean
the
it's
article,
up.
the article about going up in Arizona wasn't real. It was they were selectively trying to like when you look at it at a grander thing, it was actually going down. Anyway, I've been keeping track of it, man. Deaths have been going down for now 9 straight weeks. Just saying, it's going down.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole, but I mean most of the stuff that we're seeing is, I mean, it's plateauing. It's not dropping dramatically, and there are spikes in specific areas throughout the country. And I think it's going to be a factor when it comes time for the NCAA, because what's going to happen for them if if there are states in particular that aren't able to compete or practice regularly, and then you just throw into the mix about 2 months from now, schools are going to start coming back, and what's going to happen with that and how they're going to handle that portion of it. Again, I don't want to go too far into that. Guys can listen to other podcasts to discuss that. But as it stands now, there are domestic meets. I'm thinking most, if you're a middle distance or distance pro in the United States, you'd probably want to keep it close to home and take advantage of these meets and run these meets, because you can still get some fast running in without going overseas. But it's hard to tell right now, not knowing the financials of every single athlete and what's offered and what's on the table to run in meets in Monaco or other spots in Europe.
Yeah, I can honestly see a lot of the athletes choosing domestic over international just because of the whole situation, and that it would take a large amount of money for them to be pulled towards going to somewhere in Europe for a meet here or there. But I
Mm-hmm.
think I think the LA meets are going to be big. I think pre will be big if that goes off in October. I'm sure all like the Bowerman people, all the people based in Portland will come on down to run that meet. Uh, it's kind of interesting. You know how you love schedules, man. You for those who don't know,
Mm-hmm.
Kevin loves track and field schedules. He loves track and field schedules so much that he has a bookmark on his laptop on his Chrome browser, like
Mm-hmm.
what 12 months out from a championship of the schedule of a track meet.
Well, I don't even bookmark it. I just keep it on there. I just keep it on there. It just lives
And you
on that.
and
It's
you look at it
like my
so
Gmail.
often.
you got to internalize it. You got to know it. That's why. So I'm going to know that Music City is the 15th. I'm going to know that Sunset Tour is the 22nd. And not only that, I'm going to know the order of events. You got to know the
We need
order
to
of
go to
events, Gordon. It's key.
I need to go to Kinko's and make a poster for you. You can put it above your bed, and you can just stare at it every time you go to sleep. You can tell bedtime stories to your children about the time of Music City Distance Carnival goes to Sunset Tour, goes to Prefontaine, and just have it
Why are you
become.
anti-schedule?
Well, I'm
Why are you
anti
anti-schedule?
looking at schedules 6 months out over and over again. I'm anti that. I think that's a little. I think there's other things to care about.
I do, yeah, like the Sixers 2029 draft pick, which is where your
Yeah,
head is at,
that's
which is
important.
good. You never make meaningless charts. We all know that. Uh, I will say this though, pre the beginning of October, that feels like a year away, and just so I have no idea what's going to be going on in October. That just seems so far away. You could tell me, oh yeah, it's going to go off without a hitch, or you could tell me it's not going to happen at all. I have no clue what would happen in October. That's so far down the line. Then again, I mean, June seemed really far down the line when we were talking about June in March and April, and here we are. Maybe we'll go on warp speed through the summer, but um, yeah, October, like that just I don't know. I don't know what October looks like at all for any sports, right? The NBA is still going in October, is that right? And NFL theoretically is starting, and college football would be going, or they might do a delayed start. I saw, or they might start early so that way they can get done early. I don't know what sports are going to look like in the fall. That's going to be a hard one to figure out.
Well, I know I'm excited for it. We're already halfway through June. It's June 15th, man. Who'd have
Yeah,
thought? We're
yeah,
already halfway through June. It's crazy. But
yeah.
I think I want to know. So if we see all these events popping up end of August, do you think there's going to be any? I mean, the AAU Junior Olympics are happening early August in Florida, so
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be some trickling of even more and more. I mean, these high school kids are time trialing like hell all over the country. I mean, we just had
Yeah.
another track meet in Arizona where high school kids ran like 148 in the 800. I think it was a 448 high school girls mile. Um, it's hard to hold back the high school kids. High school kids, especially the seniors, are like, COVID or no COVID, I'm gonna run my time trial and get something out there. Uh,
Well, but now the
but
season's over. I
yeah,
mean, they're not going to keep. I don't think they're going to keep going much longer because their season is over. Now it's on to the pro season and then the fall for cross country. What's the effect? We talked about NBA being the leader here. What's the effect if that doesn't ultimately happen? There's other things factoring into their decision whether or not they're going to play, but I wonder if that ends up getting scrapped or pushed back, if that has an impact, or if by that point there'll be enough other sports going that they won't carry as much weight.
yeah, I think you internally want the NBA to be scrapped so you can hold on to your Spurs playoff uh,
No, no,
appearance
no, no.
streak, and that the season
I
gets
said that
canceled.
joking. I said that jokingly.
Uh,
I want them to do whatever's in the best interest of the world and the league and the
okay,
Milwaukee Bucks. My longtime favorite team, the Milwaukee Bucks.
the Milwaukee Bucks. No, you're gonna become a Sixers fan, man. I thought that was our
Ugh.
deal. The
I
Sixers are your East team.
I regret not cheering for them against the Raptors. I should have cheered for them against the Raptors to prevent that situation in my life, and then they would have gone on and lost to the Bucks, and it would have been a lot easier and a lot simpler. But I really regret that. But I'm not going to cheer for the Sixers. I don't know. Like, I guess that would get into when football is starting, so there would be another sport. I mean, baseball is a complete mess right now, but that's a totally different scenario as well too. It just everybody wants to dip their toe in the water a little bit, but I think they also are waiting for somebody else to be the first one through.
Yeah. Well, JoJo, my girlfriend, is going to be the first one through because she's holding a personal time trial on Friday night in Austin, Texas. So get
That's
ready.
I hate to break it to you guys, but there's been other time trials. We just talked about one about 10 minutes ago in
Well,
Virginia.
this is a dual meet time trial. By dual meet, I mean two meet time trials happening at the same time. The
Okay,
first
tell me about it.
half of the time, the first half is going to be a mile time trial where
Oh wait, hold on a second. Hold
JoJo.
on a second. Is she going to try to beat Timothy Chariot too? That's just not fair. That's piling on. All right. They had altitude to deal with, wind and rain. Leave the guy
No,
alone. He did his
she's
best.
gonna try. She's gonna try to break her mile college record, which is great to
Oh,
break.
what is it?
I'm not sure if she wants that public because basically she's trying to
I just
break. Maybe I'll say it. She's trying to break 5 minutes in the mile. So that's the goal. Break 5 minutes in the mile, which is pretty good. At age 30, go for it,
yes, that's
right?
fast. Okay, so hold
And
on. Is she
then
running a mile 16:09? You guys gonna measure the extra
yeah,
9, or
we're
does the
gonna.
track have a?
I'm busting out a tape
Okay,
measure to get that extra 9 meters. We ain't playing.
okay,
It's gonna be official.
okay, okay.
This is gonna be a personal record, not a personal best for sure. But
A new personal best.
um, but then the second half of this meet is a beer mile for one of my former college teammates, Elizabeth Lassiter, who actually is a world class beer miler. She's like top 10 in the world. She has attended multiple beer mile championships and beer mile world classics. But Beer Mile World Classic is putting on together a virtual beer mile, and there's prize money. So this is the weekend where she can, submit her time. So we're gonna have a
Okay.
real mile to as I'm not sure if the beer mile is first or the real mile is first. We might do the beer mile second because it might get a little sloppy on the track. You never know with the spillage. But yeah, it's a mile/beer mile invitational in Austin, Texas. Not live, unfortunately. No live stream.
I I just pulled up the schedule. The miles first and the beer miles
Oh,
second.
okay.
I had it on my
Okay. That
tabs.
makes sense.
Yeah.
There you go.
Wait, is JoJo doubling or she's just running the mile?
Oh, no, she's just running a mile. Yeah, no
Okay.
doubling. Yeah.
Is she going to be paced?
Yes, we have a pacer. Oh, we haven't found the pacer yet, but we're just assuming the pacer will pace because I can't pace. I've been injured. I also couldn't pace if I wasn't injured because I'm just not fast right now
Yeah, you
or ever
buried the
for the
lead
past
there.
10 years. I haven't been fast for the past 10 years. No, we think we have a pacer to go out through 800. So that's the plan.
Oh,
We're gonna
okay.
make it
Do we
happen.
have any recent workouts? Any data that we can use to inform our pick on whether or not she's going to do this?
Well, the final workout will be tomorrow, but we had a workout in Galveston, which I mentioned on the pod. It was a weird workout though
Hmm.
because it was on a 600-meter track was
Oh yeah. I heard you guys talk about this. Yeah.
that moved around, but
Uphill.
it wasn't uphill. It was still flat. It was just like turned a lot. It was a
That was
three
Timothy
by
Chariot's
one.
track.
It was a 3x1K, I believe,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
where you you run. I think she ran 330, 330, 315. So it's pretty good.
Wait,
But
hold on.
like,
I gotta do my conversions here.
or no, it was
330,
330,
330.
It was 332, 330, 312. It was 312, not 315.
Wait. Why did she went from 330 down to 312? I mean, let's distribute the effort a little more evenly here. What
Well,
is she
that's the
doing?
idea. It was supposed to be like get
No, I'm just kidding.
tired and then go all, I don't know what it was. 330, 330,
312.
312.
Okay. All
312 is
right.
what, 505, 510 pace?
I don't. Yeah, I have a hard time with K's converting that
Yeah.
to mile times. Okay. I just rewatched the Cam Levins documentary because I put it up on the site. Has she considered doing 3 runs a day to prepare for this?
We have discussed. We had a big team meeting earlier this morning when we saw that banner at 4 a.m. Because JoJo actually wakes up at 4:30 a.m. every morning because her job starts
Does
at
she check
5
the
a.m.
banners?
So she checks the banners, gets the information, watches all the documentaries before she has her first cup of coffee. It's a good routine. Meanwhile, I'm just still sleeping, doing my thing, waking up at 8:30 for this pod. But no, we're not doing 3 runs a day.
I've
If you
watched that
count,
so many
yeah.
times. I can't stop watching that thing. I start it and I cannot turn it off. It's
Do
amazing.
you have it
If people haven't
memorized?
watched it. No, because every time it surprises me because it's it just taps into the neurotic nature of distance running so well, of him just obsessing over every little run and how he's feeling. I thought it was really good. It's like really raw the way it's shot, and I think it works really well for the subject. And he also he's just very honest. He's very honest. There's a thing in the beginning about he's talking about uh he's like, yeah, in 3 days or in four, he goes, in 4 days last week, I had already hit 100 miles. And one of those was a 1.5 mile day. And Ryan's like, what? And Ryan's like, what? And you've seen this, right? I'm not telling you anything new,
Yeah,
right? You've watched.
yeah. I
Well,
haven't watched.
and then,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then,
I don't remember it. It was a while ago.
well,
But
so then Ryan follows up with the 1.5 mile day. And he said, that's the day I got engaged. And I didn't want to go for a run after I proposed. So he ran he only had like 5 minutes or something to run. So he runs really quickly, gets back. And then at some point he proposes to his now wife. And then just was like, "Oh, I'm not that neurotic. Like I'm not that crazy. I'm not going to go run after I propose." And then Ryan's like, "But you did run after the Bowerman Awards, right?" And he kind of laughs. So I guess after he won the Bowerman that night, and I don't know what time that would be because I've never been to the Bowerman Award. I'm guessing that's 9, 10 o'clock at night by the time that thing wraps. Apparently he went for a run that night,
I mean, there's
full
some
workout.
people who just are addicted to that runner's high, man. Right? I feel like that's what he is. It's just
Well, that's the thing though. When I'm watching it, he never it he never seemed to be, and this is just a small snapshot, but it never screamed, I love this. This is so much fun. There was just a lot of frustration, the bloody toenails, like he's just trying to hit these splits and he can't do it. And one day he goes out there, it's too cold and he can't. It's just it's a struggle, but he's so good. It was just interesting to see somebody that good have that relationship with running. Um, and the bloody toenails thing or the bloody feet. His whole feet just get mashed up. I don't. It's just a fascinating watch, and it made me think. Maybe more people should be doing 3 a days.
I'm maybe not doing 3 days, but I am challenged. I've run every day in 2020 so far, so
But you're
I got to
injured
keep
now,
that
though.
going. But I am injured, so the runs are really, uh, the runs are kind of embarrassing right now. Injured when you're trying to keep a stupid streak like this, but you're injured.
See,
I
you're
know
just like him.
it's worse, but like I just look like an old man, like like limping because I hurt my calf.
Yeah,
But hey,
yeah.
man, gotta get out there and get those miles or mile in this situation when you're injured.
Hey, even Cam Levins, in the midst of his 200-mile weeks, was turning in 1.5 mile days.
Yeah, exactly. So
You could
that's
do
what
it
I gotta
too.
do. I gotta do the Cam Levins 1.5. So
I
when
want
they
to
asked
bring
me
up
how
one
far
other.
to go, I said I went 11. But by 11, I meant 1.5 for Cam Levins.
Yeah, I want to bring up the story about World Athletics. They reported deficits in 2014, 2015, and 2017. Now, they made money in 2016, which should not be a surprise because that's the year of the Olympic Games. Don't know how this compares too much to prior years. Don't have the full accounting in front of us. I'm guessing you were not surprised by this, though.
Absolutely not. As someone who works in track and field media and understands the economics of track and field, I think a lot of people on the outside don't really understand the cost of track and the revenue that track brings in. It's just like people think it's they we just because you see track and field on NBC doesn't mean it is raking in the same amount of money when you see basketball on ESPN. Like it just isn't. And that like understanding like the way that media company like major media companies like NBC's, ESPN and the likes look at the value of a track and field meet, it is
Mm-hmm.
night and day. I mean, in our eyes, we look at, whoa, it has Christian Coleman in it. Like he is a multi-million dollar man and Noah Lyles and all these great people, Allison Felix. Like, but it's not like they look at track as just like the same way they look at ESPN now is streaming what beanbag throwing. I think it's like a thing that I see it on TV right now, like their bags competition or showing pool
Oh, like
or
cornhole,
poker,
cornhole, right?
cornhole, yeah, cornhole. But I wasn't surprised. The economics of track and field is not as lucrative, and there's a lot of reasons for it. I mean, I think it has to do with the way the way the sport is designed over the years and how we've you know
Mm-hmm.
track has become boring to the non-track fan because of the way they do it. Like track meet is 8 hours
Hmm.
long, and this, that, and the other thing, and the athletes don't race each other all the time, and a lot of times we only care about world records and not just great performances. There's multiple variety of reasons. I mean, the ultimate biggest reason, which I will always hold on to this, is that we design a sport where only 5 days of the year, of the 365 days of the year, where only 5 to 10 of those days matter. How
Hmm.
are you going to make money on a sport where literally, like, what, 2% of the year matters? And by that 2% of the year, I mean the week of Worlds, because you see professional athletes lose at Diamond League events and they do not care. They're like, oh, whatever, just getting ready for Worlds. Oh, this is a good rust buster for Worlds. Oh, Worlds happened last week, so I'm kind of just seeing what I have left. Oh, I'm in a hard session right now. Oh, yeah. Oh, well, this doesn't matter. It's all about Worlds.
Yeah.
At least Americans have 2 weeks because we can at least identify USA trials as the same level as importance as Worlds. But you're never going to have a successful sport where literally 11 of the months don't matter. So how are you going to market a reason for someone to watch track and field in 11 of those months if they're only going to watch it in the if the athletes only care about the 1 week of August? Like, it's just not going to happen. So I always said that they need to go the golf and tennis model, which is 4 majors, so
Yeah. Yeah.
you're more relevant on a seasonal basis and not just a one time. I mean, we're so stupid. We not only is it 1 week a year, we also take an entire year where we do none of it. So it's 3 weeks every 4 years. Like, it's crazy.
Hmm. Hmm.
Why do we create a sport where only 3 weeks out of a 4 year period it matters? Like
Hmm.
basketball, you could say basketball has a problem with the regular season, or at least their playoffs are like 3 months long, right?
Playoffs never end.
Like,
Playoffs never end. Yeah.
that's something
I
at least.
I thought this Michael Johnson tweet was interesting, responding to this story. He says, I don't understand why they, meaning World Athletics, wouldn't want to be more transparent with athletes about its finances. If athletes know the sad predicament of the finances, they might be more sympathetic to some of the decisions made or at least have more context. I thought that was an interesting point. Like, people are always questioning what World Athletics does, and rightfully so, especially if you're an athlete. But in order to get the full context of it, you need to know the dollars behind it, right? And if you're losing money all over the place, and then athletes are saying, well, why are we cutting meets? But you don't tell them that you're losing money, then you could have at least some understanding about why they're doing it and the hard choices on board. I thought of an interesting, crazy idea, and let me know what you think of this. Because, this is always, for as long as tracks existed, people have thrown all these ideas around about how to save track, and none of them are the silver bullet because there really is no silver bullet. But I was listening to your conversation with Carl Lewis last week, and he said there's too many pro athletes. Just cut down on the amount of athletes in track and field. So I was thinking this would just be an interesting experiment to do, just to see what would happen. And you wouldn't even need to actually put it into play. All you'd need is cooperation from the meet organizers to share finances to figure out, how this would work. And that's this. Take the budget of all the Diamond League. Okay. So that's any money that is used for appearance fees, sponsorship, all that stuff, right? From the local all the way up to whatever money, if any, World Athletics chips in, right? So you get this number. And then from there, you divide that out equally based on the number of athletes that you want to have in your circuit. So whatever, say it's 10, 15 meets or whatever. And then come at a number and say, okay, this is what you would get flat fee to participate. And you have to participate in every single meet. And then you will get this amount of money. I don't know what that number would be because we always hear famously Usain Bolt gets a $500,000 appearance fee, right? At this meet or that meet. And that would all go into that pot. Or what you could do is you could do this. You could get that same pot of money, right? And then you could have slots. And you could say, we're going to number this one. How many athletes do you think are at a Diamond League circuit? If you put 8 per event, what would that be?
I mean, there's what, 20 of it? I don't know how many events there are. What, 30?
Yeah. Let's just
There's a
say
lot of
there's
events.
let's just let's just say there's 5. Well, I know, but there's some that aren't in the Diamond League, right? That like the 10,000's not in the Diamond League. You keep it out. I mean, you can
Okay.
put steeple back in. It's hard to come up with the exact number, but say there's 500 athletes. Say there's 500 athletes competing in the Diamond League, right? And you
Hold on.
slot them.
Okay, sure.
Go
500.
ahead.
Sure. Let's do it.
Is
500.
that
I think
that's
it's
not
more though.
that's not
That's
a
the
crazy
thing.
number?
Diamond League.
Gordon's
We
doing
can easily
math
do the
here.
math. I just want to get the exact number because
Do the exact
the
number. Do
number
the
of
exact number.
yeah.
Because then I'll
Uh,
lay out the other scenario that I have here. But as I was saying, this is predicated on all that money being pooled. So everybody's budget, and I'm not talking about just the prize money or the bonus money. I'm talking about the appearance fees, all of it, everything
so
on down to get
there's
one number.
so there's 24 disciplines. So how many athletes per discipline?
So wait, 24 men, 24 total, right? Does that include men and women?
I think it's men and women, so it may be 48 total. I right? No.
No.
No,
That's
24 is men and so it's only 12. Yeah, it's only 12 men and 12 women, right? That makes more sense.
okay, but
Right?
yeah, but it's pared down right now. It's pared down right now. Well, because they took the 200 out, right? The 200's not in there. The steeple's not in there. The 5,000's not in there. The 10,000's not in there. The triple jump's not in there. The multis aren't in there. The hammer throw's not in there. Okay, so even with that number, right? So take that, multiply it by, let's just say 10 people per event because you have two
So
alternates, and
okay, so
then
250
we get
people. Let's
okay.
say 250
So
people.
okay, so you get your number, your dollar sign. Are you still with me here? This is my TED talk for
Well,
the day. All right,
can I stop you really quick?
sure.
There are probably 40 people in an event that think they are in the top 10.
Well, listen to what I'm saying here. Listen to what I'm saying.
Okay.
You got it. So you take that number, that dollar sign, right? And then you have 250 athletes, and there's some equity here because it's distributed evenly across those events. So it's 10 per event, and then you have a number one salary, and you have a number two salary, and a number three salary, and a number all the way down to 250, and it is
Yeah.
adjusted and decided based on your credentials, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
for Usain Bolt would constantly, if he was there, because two-time world record holder, he would constantly be in the number one spot. So he would command number one salary. Now, what that would be, I don't know. And then you go down from there. Like, which would they prefer? Which would people prefer? Option A, where it's flat across the board, or option B, where it's a meritocracy. You could move up theoretically, but it's also based on how good you are and what your credentials are year by year. And you'd have to move up, and then you'd have to compete. You'd have to compete if you wanted to be in that slot. Would it be even enough money to get people to compete? That's the other question. In most
The
cases, it's
ultimate
usually not.
the problem is there is no incentive to be a Diamond League champion to run any Diamond League meet. Usain Bolt
Right.
did not care about the Diamond League. He cared about winning Olympic titles and world titles.
Right.
The Diamond League is not going to have any value, no matter how much prize money you throw in it, no matter what you change the format. Diamond League is going to have no value until the Diamond League is considered an equal to a world championship. And the only
Well,
way to
that's
make
not
Diamond
that.
League equal,
There is some limit, right? If they had $10 million, if the winner of the pre-classic got $10 million in every event, it would become the biggest meet of the year.
sure, okay,
So there is
yeah,
a number. You just need a number
but that number they don't.
that's attained.
World Athletics doesn't have enough money to make that number.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and I
Well,
also think a lot of
they
these,
don't.
yeah,
Well, what I'm saying is they don't for Bolt, right? They don't for Bolt because there's these mega superstars who essentially price them. They're priced out of the market because there's no amount of money that they can make that makes it more valuable than just his day-to-day salary from Puma, right? Because if he's even a
yeah,
little bit injured, he's not going to risk it. Like, you need to raise the amount of money high enough to where a good majority of the big players, maybe not the Bolts, that maybe they'll always be immune from this sort of thing and be able to skip it. But like they need to be able to say, ah, crap, I can't scratch. I signed this contract for $125,000 and I need to be at every single meet.
I mean, what they do is they show up and they scratch by pretending to pull up, because that's what a lot of Nike athletes do when they're forced to show up at Prefontaine and they don't want to run. They just like fake
Yeah.
run it. I mean, the whole
Yeah.
problem is the sport needs to be restructured from top to bottom, like from down up and top to bottom. I know what you're trying to say is like, hey, would they rather just all get equal contracts? No, they wouldn't want that, because if there's no incentive then to be good if you're just getting paid the same amount as the people you're stomping on. And then even
Yeah.
your second idea where like it's tiered, yes, on paper that makes sense that I get the most money in this system, but the problem is they're just gonna be like, this system doesn't have enough money to give me. Like if
Mm-hmm,
the
mm-hmm.
top
Yeah.
tier athlete's salary is less than your salary that you get from your sponsorship,
Right.
it's like not worth it. So,
Yeah.
and the reason why
Oh, I'm
the
not.
Diamond League does not have
Yeah.
enough money is because they're just problem is like a lot of top tier athletes, if you are the best in your sport, you kind of in a weird way kind of tell yourself like you're at the same level as the best in other sports, and then you see the best baseball players or soccer players, football players, like the
Yeah.
best track player makes the same amount as the worst baseball player. That's basically just how it
Track
is.
player. What's a track player? You're gonna lose your
Track player.
track card for saying. I look. Let me be clear. I'm not saying this. I'm not saying this is a solution. I would just say it would be an interesting exercise to do, right? If you act, because you want to know actually, okay, how much money is there in track? Because you hear about the losses from the Diamond League, right? Or not the Diamond League, from World Athletics, but we don't know. Okay, how much did Pre-Classic make? How much did the Stockholm meet make? How much did Monaco make? Like we don't know any of that. So I'm saying if you just put it into a huge pot, it would be just interesting to see how much of that could go to athletes, right? Like
Like
it
I
would
bet
just be
yeah.
because what if, and I'm not saying this, like, what if you do the numbers and it's like, okay, everybody gets $20,000. You have to compete in 10 meets and everybody would get $20,000. Everybody be like, okay, that's not worth it. But what if you ran the numbers and you're like, okay, well, in this system, if you're in the top 20, you're going to make $250,000 or more. Again, I don't know. These are all just hypothetical numbers. I would just be
Yeah, it's
interested to
definitely not
see
going to
them.
be $250,000. I mean,
I'm just
I
interested to
think you
see
kind of
them.
want to create a salary cap situation where basically every basketball team gets to spend up to what $130 million on their team. So if you're one of 15 players on that team, you're going to get a slice of one, at least minimum 1/15th slice of $130 million on if you make the NBA, right? Because you'll be in that pie.
Yeah.
I think the pie for the pie is. I think it's going to be. I would argue that what's 250 times 10,000? I should be able to do quick math in my head. Like it's
Stand by for Gordon's math.
2.5
You should
million,
add a bunch.
right? Is that 2.5 million?
2.5
Is
million.
that what? I
Yeah. I
bet
mean,
you.
they're giving out at least, I mean, that's at least appearance money for a couple meets, right? Like I'm guessing
I
that
don't know, man. I would argue
that's
that
not,
if I would argue that if you had 250 athletes competing in a diamond league, they would all make the average. They would all it would all be under $25,000 per person.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a lot of money. I don't think there's a lot of money in the
Well,
sport, and I think
maybe, maybe you're right. Maybe it would be. And then maybe you're like, okay, well, then the bottom 75 or something, they're not going to get, they're not going to get, they're going to get even less. And then they have to earn it in terms of prize money, figuring something out with that. It's just, I'm just interested in it because when Carl said limiting the amount of people, you're trying to make that top group be sustainable, right? That's the idea of like,
yeah,
okay, here is this group. And once you've made it into this tier, you are going to be making at least X amount of money, which means you're obligated to do these amount of competitions, which is going to raise the entire level of the sport. I'm just reminded, like, what's the G League salary in the NBA? Because back in the day, I remember when the G League, or back when they used to call it the D League, first started, they were making like $40,000, and then the league minimum was 250 or something like that. So it was just a huge jump, a huge gulf between the haves and the have-nots. Track has this very blurry line that goes on where there's obviously a few people who are making a good amount of money, but then there's all sorts of people in the middle who, if you race a lot, maybe you're making more than someone who's better but just not showing up, and vice versa. There's a very blurry middle.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that what you're saying is we need, if you want to work, you do need to have a cutoff, because why are we trying to 1,900 people make the Olympics? 1,900. That's like the number that they hit.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost 2,000, and those are people who make the Olympics. Nothing of the people who compete in track who don't make the Olympics. Like all those fourth place finishers
Yeah.
at USA's, hell, all the 12th place finishers at USA's, and the fifth place finishers at Jamaica, and all that. There's a lot of people who compete in track professionally who don't make top 3 in their country, right? So that
Mm-hmm.
number, that 1,900 number, you could argue. I mean, Kenny Harrison didn't go to the Olympics, and she wasn't part of that
Mm-hmm.
1,900. The world record holder wasn't part of that 1,900. So the amount of people who consider themselves part of that group is even greater than 1,900, right? The number of people
Yeah.
who are in the NBA, 450. Like,
Yeah.
that's what you need to do. You need to find a way to make the number of people who are part of the pro circuit, under 500. And that if you want to be in that 500, you have to be faster than someone else, and someone in that 500 gets knocked out because you're not
Mm-hmm.
able to stay in that 500 tier. And I think that's,
Yeah.
I mean, if we create a system where, like, ooh, this would be kind of cool. The Diamond League system where you have like knockout races. So like, hey, like
Mm-hmm.
if you have multiple bad races and someone has multiple good races, they get to kind of bump you out, and then they are now part of that elite group for the
Yeah.
next season, and you get knocked out.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
hey, you didn't have a good year, so you're now not part of it. You
Yeah. Yeah.
gotta go a
There's
whole
like
year of not being part of it. Yeah.
well, there's like a group, right? And then once the group is decided, the group is set at least for a year, and maybe there's opportunities. You're right, to bump someone in or off throughout it. But then, like, once that group is set, there's that group, and then that group is then obligated to actually compete. The other thing is the collaboration, right? Because right now you have the meets are doing one thing, the national governing body is doing another thing, international governing body is doing another thing, the Diamond League is doing another thing. The whole idea is just like, we're talking about NBA, NFL, PGA. There's this really strong central governing body there, right? Everybody's part of something. Here is just in track, you're part of everything. I looked it up. I was outdated just to show you how old I was about the G League. So now they're saying G League 125K for 5 months, but the league minimum now is 898,000. So still, that's a huge difference between G League and the NBA. Now you could go to Europe and make money too, so it's not exactly an apples to apples comparison. But I think what Carl was getting at was just like making that line a little thicker between those two groups of people within the track world.
Yeah, and it's hard to do this because, like we said, if the number is 450, we have way too many events. So
Mhm.
like that number gets divided up even more when you then divide it in. You have to divide it in two because you have men and women, and then you get divided in 18 again because you have all the different events. So like,
Mhm. Do you think
it
there'll ever
just
be an
creates.
alliance of like like all the sprinters get together with like the milers, and they're like, hey, we're the big ticket people, we should separate from the rest of this and form our own federation, because we're what people want to see. They don't want to see all these other events, they want to see us.
Yeah. The only way it will change. The World Athletics is the only people that have, like, no one can create a new league. Like they tried like the Tracktown series. That's not going to work. The only way it will work is if World Athletics literally dismantles the way they crown world champions and
Mm-hmm.
says, like, they
you,
could
you
say
have to run
like,
the regular season. You have to run the regular season, basically. You have to
Yeah.
earn your way into the World Championships throughout the season. You can't just show up runs once, run a time, and get in. You
Yeah.
have to be
Yeah.
participating in the season. Yeah,
It's like, hey,
yeah,
yeah, if you want to win a world title, you got to be in the league. And
hmm
everyone is already in the league, like by just being a human being. Like you're a member of
yeah,
World Athletics by just being a human being and not testing positive. That's the only requirement, right? Is that the only
yeah. It's a good
requirement to
point.
be a World Athletics eligible?
That's
You
your
just have to be a
first
human
good point
being over age
today. Well,
16 and not doping
yeah,
and hit a time. Three
yeah,
things.
yeah,
There's no you
yeah.
don't in order to
I
win
mean,
an
that's the
NBA
cool part
title,
about. Yeah,
you
I
have
mean, that's
to
kind of the cool part
play
about running, though. You
82.
could literally just be a. You could literally like say you live in a country uh that doesn't have much competition in the, I don't know, the 1500. You could beg your way in, and you're just a person, right? And you've been training by yourself. You could beg the Mount Sac meet director or whoever, or the meet director in some small meet to get you in. You run the time, and you go to the Olympics. Right? That's literally all you need to do.
Yeah.
That's
But
it.
like is that good? I don't think that's good. Right. I don't think.
It's no. I mean, it's cool in terms of like personal interest stories, and it's cool in terms of, man, that makes a really clear path. But it isn't cool in terms of a sustainable professional sports operation. Yeah,
And I think
and
World
that sort of
Athletics
thing happens. Well, because it's built on the national model. We both know
yeah.
this. The whole idea is about countries participating, which I think you could still do, but and you could definitely do it at the Olympics, but the World Championships should be built around this. And I think the mark is always on how do we get new fans, which is tough. It's like we're never going to be able to compete with football or basketball, baseball. I think the goal should be around just engaging the fans that are on the fence or will tune into the Olympics and World Championships, and how do you keep them hooked all year round? Because that it's not going to be, you're not going to be doing Premier League numbers with that, but you could see an increase in interest just with people who are already predisposed to becoming fans or being fans year round.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's a problem. Like I said, World Athletics is the only one that can actually solve the problem, but it's
Yeah.
kind of not good to ask a governing body that loses money 3 out of 4 years to solve a problem. That's not really the
Mm-hmm.
people we should be. So the people who can solve the problem aren't really equipped to solve the problem, because when they solve the
Yeah.
problem, they come up with great ideas like having 3 decathletes do 3 events in their backyard and thinking that is like innovation. And like, ooh,
Yeah.
they put fireworks up for the athlete intros. Clearly, it's
Yeah.
innovation. Ooh, they they included the Twitter handle of the athlete in the meet booklet. Whoa, okay,
Yeah. Well,
cool.
all
We're
that
really
stuff's all that's 10 years old. All that stuff is, yeah, that's t-shirt cannons coming to a meet near you. I understand that. But the other side of it is the wholesale big changes that you're going to anger some constituency. And what's true about track from the youth level all the way through pros is you have to keep a lot of people happy because there are so many people involved.
and there's a lot of people involved for free, right? There's a lot of
Yeah, yeah.
volunteers that you have to make
Mm-hmm.
happy. Yeah, I mean, Carl. I remember talking about him. I talked about this with him a lot of times during the film in the Houston shoot. He says a big reason why World Athletics can't make a change is because there's countries who who basically live off of the World Athletics funding. And if
Mm-hmm.
World Athletics started making it harder to enter and like
Yeah,
all
yeah,
this stuff, all these smaller countries would be like, no, and then they get a majority. Like he's basically saying that USA should have a more of a impactful or more say at the table than right
yeah.
now. USA has the same amount of voice as Djibouti, even though
Mm-hmm.
USA is the ones who are creating an NCAA system to develop all these athletes, and it's put a lot more money in the sport
Mm-hmm.
without World Athletics, spending more money than World Athletics as asking them to do, but they get the same amount of voice as Djibouti, which just says, "Hey, can you send our 12 people to Worlds?" So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. It's all again because they're trying to just they see it as more of an extension of the Olympic movement, as opposed like they are closer positioned to the Olympics than they are to a golf or tennis or team sport league. I think that's where they see themselves aligning closer with.
And it's so
That's
crazy how
hard to make money that way.
why do we idolize the Olympics is like effed up, man. Like it's not like a good
Whoa,
system. It is
controversial
awful. It
opinion
is
here.
awful to the athletes. Like it it basically uses it exposes and what's the word? I'm really
Exploits.
bad. Exploits. It exploits athletes based on their love of country. Like it's like, hey, do all this stuff for free for us because you love your country. And if you don't do
Mm-hmm.
it, you just don't love your country enough, right? And people have always been protesting against the crazy rules that the Olympics have and the amount of money that they make, this, that, and the other thing. And it's all because they have a monopoly, and the monopoly is patriotism of your country, right? It's just like that's their monopoly. So like, hey, well, you can't go represent your country anywhere else, so you got to come here. So you can follow our weird ass rules. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what World Athletics is doing. Right? You can't go anywhere else, So
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right.
If we want niche sport athletes to make the same amount of money as the NBA and NFL, they need to stop this country stuff, man. It just that is what's holding it back.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's great, but and I do love the Olympics and I love cheering for American athletes and seeing smaller countries have like big breakthroughs and seeing them their pride of their country. As a fan, I
Yeah, yeah.
love it. Don't get me wrong. I don't hate the Olympics, but that business model is what is screwing over athletes. So
We'll leave
anyway.
it there. A lot to think about. Wide ranging show. I hope everybody enjoyed it. FloTrackPodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and FloTrack.org/FloTrack Podcast. Thank you to Gordon. Thanks to Alon for producing. We will talk to you guys tomorrow.